going to Africa and try and teach people.
I don't think he wants to go to university if he wants to be an astronaut. I'd like to find out all about the moon and all that.
Is it important to fly? Yes. I want to be a jockey when I grow up. Yeah, I want to be a jockey when I grow up.
Tony was already an apprentice at Tommy Gosling's racing stables in Epsom when he left school at 15.
This is a photo finish when I rode at Newbury. I'm the one with the white cap. I was beating a length and half a third and had a photo finish. So I took it out of the box and kept it as a souvenir.
What will you do if you don't make it as a jockey?
I don't know. If I knew I couldn't be one, I'd get out of the game. Wouldn't bother.
What do you think you would do then?
Law on taxes.
Tony didn't make it as a jockey. He had 3 races, wasn't placed, and gave it up. At 21, he was doing the knowledge, learning to be a London cabbie.
I will be a cab driver, and I know I will. And I'm going to prove every person who think I can't be a cab driver wrong. I'm going to get that badge and I'm going to put it right in their face. Just to tell them how wrong they can be and how underestimated I am. It's surprising who you pick up, you see. I once met Kojak, I picked him up. And Warren Mitchell, Alf Garnett, you know. And I said, oh, hello, Warren, how are you, mate? Good to see you. So he ends up saying, I want to go to Langhams Brasserie, you know, Stratton Street, Langhams. So I'm halfway there. I said, listen, I said, Warren, you wouldn't... I said, it wouldn't be you if you don't sort of come out with Alf, you know. I mean, let's see how he's going, you know. So straight away, he's brought Alf Garnett to life in the back of me cab. So we're on the way to Langhams, you know. All I can hear is Alf Garnett, you know. It's the Labour government and you're lot up here. And when we get there, I said, like, thanks, Warren, terrific, mate. 180. So he gave me exactly 180. Listen, I said, I know you're Alf Garnett, I know you're having trouble, sort of like, I said, but I want you to become Warren Mitchell now, like, my tips are like 20 odd pence or whatever. And he said, son, as in Alf Garnett still, you know Alf's doing bad at the moment, I can't afford it. He walks away, I'm like, you've done me like a kipper.
What does it take to be a good cabbie?
I think myself, happy-go-lucky character, and to take as much as what any other person couldn't take in a normal job, because it's a big world out there and everyone's a different character I pick up. Their attitudes, some of them, like the city gents, the typical Waterloo driver, please, in 5 minutes. I sort of say, hold on mate, I'll get my helicopter out of the boot. I love being a taxi driver, I like the outdoor life, the independence. There's no one to govern me to say, like, you've got to be in at a certain time.
Sometimes on Saturday morning I go to the pictures. Sometimes with my friends, sometimes with him. You don't. I do. You don't. I don't ever see you. You go to different pictures.
Have you got a girlfriend?
Nope.
Would you like to have a girlfriend?
Nope.
You understand 4 Fs? Find them, feed them, and forget them. But for the other F, I'll let you use your own discrimination. I mean, this one, I tried to do the 3 Fs, but I couldn't forget her.
I used to work in a pub just on a Friday nights, barmaiding. and then from there one night I went to a discotheque. He was in the pub earlier on, and that afterwards we went to a discotheque and Tony was staying there. And from there, that was it. Couldn't get rid of him.
B-man, done you know?
And why did you fall in love with him?
Don't know.
I don't know how you put up with me for so long.
I don't know. Sometimes I don't know how I stand him.
But what is it that you love
I like
about
his
him?
personality. It doesn't matter who it is, he don't change for nobody.
there's only one ambition, and really, I want a baby son, and if I see my baby son, that is my ambition fulfilled. No one knows that, only you now.
We've got 2 children. Nikki's 6.5, Jodie's 2.5, nearly 3, and I'm having another one in March.
Who looks after them, or do you share it out?
Me, basically, yeah. He does take them out quite a lot, but telling offs and smacks, it's all left to me. I have to do all that. He don't like smacking them. He don't like telling them off. Unless it's really, really...
Anything serious.
Serious, then he would.
Yeah, I got... See that baby one?
So what advantages do you think you've had over some of the other people that we filmed?
Well, academically, probably they've had more advantages over me, aren't they? The fact they've had prep schools at a very early age, you know, they've benefited by it, which, you know, it tells, obviously, in this film. But as far as, you know, the stability in the backgrounds with their parents, they've missed out on that.
Tony, I don't like them near me.
Come on.
Have a piece of bread each. Hey, Jodie. Jodie.
Being in the prep school, they're missing the love and the care what every East End always gets. You know, gives their children each time they come home from work. And the parents, you know, sometimes obviously not going to be there because they're away at prep school. They're missing the love and affection, you know, what they're craving for. When my kids are growing up, I want to see the change in them all the time. So I have my own memories of when I was a kid and how they were, you know, what they were like.
Would everybody please sit round now, get on with their work. I don't want to see any backs to me. Shouldn't be anybody turning round. Tony, do you hear as well? Get on with your work in front. Tony, don't turn round again.
Education is just a thing to say my son is higher than him or my son had a better background than him. I mean, I'm as good or even better than most of them people, especially on this programme. I mean, I'm one of the tail enders. You think, oh, the East End boy, you know, and he ain't got no good education. But all of a sudden, the East End boy's got a car, motorbike, and he goes to Spain every year and whatever. And have I worked for it? No, I'm here putting bets on. You think, how does he do it? And there's a boy who is eating or whatever. He's studying to be a professor. He's making up the things. Where's the education? There's no education in this world. It's just one big rat race, and you've got to kill your man next to you to get in front of him. Education, when I said there's no education, yes, there is an education. I made a great mistake in saying that. But I didn't mean to say there's no education as far as academically. Yes, there is. The area, the environment, and education makes a person have more opportunities in this world. You know what I mean? That's obvious.
Let's talk about the kids. Do you want for them what you had for yourself in terms of schooling and everything?
You're talking about my childhood, 5 years old, upwards to 7, 8, 9. I had no money. My father had no money. My brother's closed for 10 years. His hand-me-downs are sort of going on my arms with holes in, you see. I've never had any opportunities to better myself because I was a kid. I never knew no better. And my mum and dad, you know, my dad's got ill health, you know, he couldn't work. I'm not making, you know, a violin story out of this. I mean, that's the way it was. And I'm more stronger. It happened that way. I mean, I'm a more stronger person. I appreciate things more now. And now I'm in a position, through my job, you know, to give my kids the life I never had, like lovely clothes. I go to holidays, you know, I go to Portugal, I go to Spain, hopefully America next year. I mean, I want everything I never had to go, you know, on my kids. To say that, you know, let them know the benefits of the nice life, what it's all about.
The Prussians. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. They're nuts. Just have to touch them.
Yeah, they can get what they want, can't they? If you've got to work for it, and it's them, can you just ask for money and get it? They can buy what they want.
I've learned through driving a cab that people are individuals, whatever they are, upper class or, you know, middle class or, as in my case, you know, East Ender. But I'm only glad, you know, that I found out the difference at an early age, so I can judge people on what they are rather than who they are. I'm not a politician, so let them worry about what's coming for the next day. All I understand is dogs' prices, girls' knowledge, road, streets, squares, and mum and dad and love. That's all I understand. That's all I want to understand.
Why the ones cooler than I?
4.5 50s, 40.
At 21, he was earning a bit extra as a bookies runner at Hackney Wick.
What do they call you here?
I reckon a pest, something like that. I don't mean to make a nuisance of myself. I mean, it's for the other patrons of the place. I mean, they wouldn't want to see a little boy nipping between the feet, running, putting a bet on here for a face. You understand? They think, God, what's he doing? Is he mad? I mean, I walk up there and I order the teas. There could be 8 people in front of me. I just go, can I have a tea, please? Tea, please, 5 times. Tea, please, tea, please. And they've got to serve me before them to get rid of me. You understand? So that's how you got to do it. I'm in 2 golf societies, and each month, all the members of each society meet to play a game of golf.
And who are the guys you play with?
Well, they're mostly publicans or taxi drivers, you know, and we always end up, you know, having a small bet.
Do you like the whole social side of it?
Only with my mates, because on a golf course it becomes very snooty type, you know. I mean, I understand they've got to pay £400 a year membership, and they don't, you know, really want people without any etiquette to go on a golf course and ruin their so-called golf course, right?
It's good. Great shot. Great shot.
It does get a bit a pain sometimes, you know, when they keep saying, excuse me, sir, are you a member? You know, it comes out like that. But obviously, etiquette's etiquette, so you've got to conduct yourself on these type of courses.
Because I think you're a bit smaller than most people, you try to hit the ball hard. You've got to just hit a get there.
Where'd you go, Ken?
I'm over here. Oh, I missed that, mate.
Unlucky. Keep hold of her.
It's about an 8. Right.
Too much, mate, too much.
No, it ain't, no. It's only an 8.
Yeah.
It's definitely
no,
an 8.
Too much club, Ken.
8,
An
an 8.
No, Ken's the 9, mate.
What are you going to hit then?
9, I think that's about right.
No, go on then. If you're at a 9, hit it to the right.
It's on, don't I?
That's it, that's perfect. Great shot. That's a great shot.
Now I am a young fella, and I come to you, and I heard you're a big successful taxi driver, and I say to you, yes, I
I've
think
been a film extra now for 6 years. It may not go no further. I mean, I'm just having acting lessons.
You give me the benefit of all your experience. Right. All right, now you got to feel pretty big, bigger than me.
Just go.
Right, here we go.
Tell me, son, what do you want to be a cab driver for, mate?
Well, make a lot of money, you know, have a good life.
Son, look at me. He said, I may be a successful businessman. He might have the suit, I might have the all the holidays in Spain every year, but son, it's hard work out there.
Come on,
mate.
you're not reaching me yet.
Not getting to
No,
me.
you're not getting to me. All right? Now, be bigger. Dominate me. All right?
Son,
Yeah?
son, it's a big world out there, and obviously I can't get into it, Brian.
All right, don't worry. Don't
When I was
worry. Just
in the Sweeney and when I was in Churchill, like the wilderness years, I see the actors and I thought, like, you know, it's not quite easy to act on stage because it's, you know, you need time and dedication. It's very hard. Son, tell me, why do you want to be a taxi driver?
Well, you know, you got success.
Don't let looks go on impressing. You know what I mean? Listen, you want
What
to be a
excites you about acting?
Forget it. I like it. I mean, I think to myself, you know, like I can do that. And I still want to have a go of it. I mean, nothing for sort of fame and fortune or anything like that. You know, like big Hollywood and bright lights. It's nothing like that. It's just a sideline.
So what drives you then through all these various ambitions?
It's a philosophy of not keeping still. I mean, I'm a very overactive type of person. I mean, I like to feel that I don't want to keep still. Because life, you know, don't wait for nobody. So you've got to cram it in as much as you can before your days are numbered. I mean, I'm made to be a happy-go-lucky type of fella, which I am. I'm EastEnder, which the attitude is, hello, mate, all right, how are you, type of thing. And I wouldn't want to lose that.
How long are you going to be a cab driver? Is this what you want to do for the rest of your life?
Well, at the moment, I'm very happy in driving a cab. But my wife and I always considered owning our own pub. So obviously, I think within 2 or 3 years, once I get financially straightened out, I'm going to have a go at being a publican. And if I don't like it, say if I give it a go for a year or even 6 months, if I don't like being a publican, I'm in a good position to say, well, I'll get rid of the pub and go back to taxi driving. I don't want to change, because if I change, it proves the other Tony Walker was all fake. 55 to 20, Boris.
What are the best times for you?
No, two really. The best time was when the kid's first baby was born. The next one, obviously, Jodie. But my greatest fulfilment in life, when I rode at Kempton, in the same race as Lester Piggott, I was a naive, wet behind the ears apprentice. And the governor told me, "You've got to ride, son. Ride it. You've got to lose X amount of weight," which I did, £8 in 4 days. And he says, like, I go in there and they're all there, you know. I'm part of it. All my years, from 7, all my ambition is fulfilled in one moment. When the long fella come out and I'm in with him, like, in the starter's calling out to register the names. And you can sort of go like, Piggott, draw, 8. Walker, draw, sort of 10. And your idol, like, you're there and the big man's there, you know what I mean? Money in the whole world couldn't buy that proudest day of my life, which my ambition fulfilled to the highest level. And I eventually finished last, tailed off obviously, but it didn't make any difference to me. Just to be part of it, be with the man himself. Couldn't buy it. That was the proudest day of my whole life.
Well, I'll go into Africa and try and teach people who are not civilised to be more or less good.
No, I don't want to be a missionary because I just can't talk about it to people. You know, I'm interested in it myself, but I wouldn't be very good at it at all.
Chris Awalabi.
Yes, sir.
Momin Ali.
Yes, sir.
Kaisal Mia.
Yes, sir.
Oscar Ali.
Yes, sir.
Nazrul.
Yes, sir.
Sultan.
Yes, sir.
Abdul Kaya. I was working in an insurance company at the time, and I decided to go into teaching without any experience at all. And I didn't think they would allow somebody to walk in off the street into a classroom.
6 times 3 is 18, shared by 2 is 9, plus 7 is 16, so you put a 16 there.
They were crying out for maths teachers. They interviewed me. They phoned me up the next day and said, would I like the job? I said yes. Within 5 weeks, I was in a classroom. They took one look at me and thought it was Christmas, I think.
Okay, so once you're done, all right.
What's the most enjoyable thing about teaching?
Just being a part of pupils' advancement and learning and watching them understand more and being more confident. Them getting some enjoyment and satisfaction from mathematics.
After working in the city for 3 years, Bruce started teaching at Tony's old school in the East End of London. He lives in a local council flat, within walking distance of the school.
Walden, let's have the present tense of Vesta.
Vesto, vestas, vest. Vestat, vestamus, vestotis, vestant.
Yeah, speak up.
They don't sort of enforce being upper class and things like that at St Paul's. You know, they suggest that you don't have long hair, and they do get it cut and they teach you to be reasonably well mannered, but not to sniff on the poorer people.
When we filmed him at 21, Bruce was in his last year at Oxford reading maths.
And by Eisenstein, you can show that this is irreducible. Then you do a transformation on this polynomial x equal to t plus 2.
Good, that's a nice way of doing it, particularly using Eisenstein down here. His test is very powerful.
Yes.
20, 21, 22, 23, 24.
And to here, 25. Right, so if you think it costs you 25, now you're not going to...
It's so different from your own education where you're teaching now. Why?
General education is better for society, I think. Public schools are divisive. That's with no statement about my education. My education was academically excellent, and I was very grateful for it.
Do you understand the game?
I think there is a class society, and I think public schools may help its continuance.
So you're in the lead, you see, because DSE cabs has got a profit of £2 and good B cabs has got no profit at all. Okay? Now can you explain that just to Abdul, because I want him to understand what it is.
I don't know whether I said, right, I must do something which is against what I have been brought up to do or whatever. I don't know, I've just found something I find rewarding.
I didn't agree with the Conservatives about what they were doing with the black people, you know, racial policy.
Do you have to defend immigration to a lot of people in this area?
Yes, I think you do, but those who say there are too many coming in and so on, I think really are uneducated about the whole question. They should see the positive benefits that they're having in this country and see that as a result of all of this immigration, they're not being denied opportunities. It's not the fault of immigrants that there is unemployment. It's part of a political party's responsibility is to explain that and show people what is a more truthful way of representing the situation.
None of the parties really seem to agree with me, but I think if I had voted, I'd have voted Labour.
I am about the only socialist in my village, and I go into the pub and sort of expect to stand up and defend all socialist policies. Sort of, this is the village socialist, no, village idiot, sorry.
I just see their lack of opportunities for a lot of people. Obviously unemployment is a great feature in many people's lives and many families' lives. And teaching children, sometimes you wonder what's going to happen to them. It seems to me that the leader of the country at the moment should be one of the most unpopular persons in the country. And yet she gets away with everything. She, as far as I can see, has done lots of damage. And yet nobody can oppose her.
My heart's desire is to see my daddy, who's 6,000 miles away.
I mean, I can remember being happy there. I can remember also being miserable because I can remember crying.
Squad steady!
You know, I always seem to be beaten. I never used to understand why.
Did it give you an overdeveloped sense of authority?
If you look at society in general, I've always probably been on the side of authority, and you know, it's been an education, learning that authority can be bad and can be corrupt.
Squad left foot inward, place! Squad breathing! Well, my girlfriend is in Africa, and I don't think I'll have another chance of seeing her again.
Have you got any girlfriend?
No, not yet. I'm sure it will come, but not yet.
I think I would very much like to become involved in a family, my own family for a start. That's a need that I feel I ought to fulfill and would like to fulfill and would do it well.
I mean, I do think a lot of people think too much about it.
What happened when you burnt your finger?
I'd rather not talk about it, really. Well, no, but I don't really mean that. I mean, I don't mean that I don't want to talk about it. Just I need quite a long time to think about it, really.
I think I'll possibly get a little serious and don't quite understand the modern sort of way of behaving, the modern manner. I think I'm a little old-fashioned.
Now, at 3 o'clock, I'm going to come and pick you up from art. You'll only have one art lesson. So if your art teacher forgets at 5 to 3, ask her to say we should be packing away now, and I'll come and get you.
So there you were, you went to a posh preparatory school and a major public school into Oxford, and now you're in a council flat teaching in this school in the East End of London. You don't feel any sense of disappointment?
No, because what I am trying to do at the moment and achieve is difficult. It may not sound difficult in the sense that you could sum up what I do quite simply, but behind all that, it is very difficult, and I certainly find it satisfying achieving successes. There may come a time when I decide I can't do it, and that's not necessarily weakness. That may be a strength that you realise you can't do it as well as you would wish.
I think the most important thing in the world is everyone should know about God.
It all springs from loving God and Christ, I suppose. that you try and do that as best as possible and let that lead your actions in life.
Does it sadden you when you meet people who don't believe in
Not
Christianity?
Yes, if they dismiss it casually, if they dismiss it as just being something, well, we know about that. We got a little bit of that at school, and it doesn't really mean very much. Then it does sadden me because it's much, much more than that.
What is it about it that's important to you?
Well, the belief in the belief that in goodness and in love as being two, great positive forces, and that people. Well, just a simple belief like a good act is never wasted. Certainly you can observe somebody when they're 7 and identify particular things which maybe are then always with them, whatever else happens to them. People possibly say I'm a little innocent at times or naive. I used to get worried about this and think perhaps I ought not to be taken in or deceived, or I'm not talking about love now, I'm just talking about generally speaking. But I feel that's a strength in a way. I think if they're people who are willing to trust, then we should be encouraged.
Tommy, do you have any boyfriends, Susie?
Yes.
Tell me about him.
He lives up in Scotland, and I think he's 13. And I'm rather lonely up there because he usually goes to school, but we usually play till about 6:30 when he comes home from school. And then we go in, and then he goes home to do his homework.
Have you got any boyfriends, Susie? What is your attitude towards marriage for yourself?
Well, I don't know. I haven't given it a lot of thought because I'm very, very cynical about it. But then, you get a certain amount of faith restored in it. But I got friends and their parents are happily married, and so it does put faith back into you. But me, myself, I'm very cynical about it. We were friends for about 2 years.
Rupert and Susie were married 5 years ago.
And I think the nice thing was that we knew each other very well before. We knew quite a lot of the faults of each other, which I think is very important. I don't sort of sit down and think, analyse marriage. It's not something I've had to come up and think about, whether I was going to get married. And I've got no desire to at the moment. I think 20 is far too young. I suppose 22 is considered quite young. I felt it was the right time. I don't see what I would have gained by waiting another 3 years.
What gave you that feeling?
I just felt I was doing the right thing, which, as you said, was extraordinary. When only about 18 months before, I was very anti it. I came to London when I left school after Paris. And at the moment, I could never live in the country. I'm happy down here. The country's nice for 4 days to go for long, healthy walks, but I could never live up there now.
They live in a small village near Bath, where Rupert is a partner in a firm of solicitors.
I had 7 years up in London, I suppose. It was fantastic, but I just had enough. It's a much slower way of life down here. I'd had enough of the rat race.
When I get married, I'd like to have 2 children.
I'm not very children-minded at the moment. I don't know if I ever will be.
What do you think about them?
Oh, I don't like babies.
What was the biggest shocks to you when you suddenly were confronted with a small baby that you had to be responsible for?
Panic set in, I think, that I wasn't going to be able to cope.
Would you like to have a nanny to look after them, or do you want to look after them?
No, I want a nanny to look after them.
I felt that we'd taken the decision to bring a child into the world, and I feel that I wanted to bring him up, not somebody else. I feel it's my responsibility to start him off. Whether that'll make any difference to how he turns out, I don't know. I just felt I wanted to do it.
Is it everything you wanted?
For the moment, yes. I mean, I don't think I'll have any more for the reason that I will get pleasure out of these two, but I can't see me going on and on and on with sort of 4 or 5 children. I think I feel that I'd want to move on and try and do something else.
When I leave the school, I'm down for Heathfield and South Manor. And then maybe I may want to go to a university, but I don't know which one yet.
I like to do maybe short-hand typing or something like that.
I left school when I was 16, went to Paris, went to secretarial college and got a job.
What made you decide to leave school and go to Paris?
I just wasn't interested in school and just wanted to get away.
And why did you choose Paris?
I don't know, it was my parents really. Now I got to the stage in my life where I've got to make my own decisions. You've got to learn to fend for yourself one day. I went to prep school boarding when I was 9. Rupert went at 8, and both of us hated it. I hated my prep school. I just feel it's too young to send a child off, and we both feel we'd never send Thomas and Oliver off. Probably maybe till they're 13. I think 8's much too young. So we will definitely keep them at home.
Do you still want to send them in the private sector to school?
I think we will, yes. But as I said, not till they're 13.
Why did you choose the private sector as opposed to the state?
I suppose it's what we had, it's what we know. I think both of us probably were very sheltered. It's only having been abroad that you can appreciate more, that people are very different, cultures are different. But I think as I was growing up, I think probably I was far too sheltered.
What do you think about making this programme?
I just think it's just ridiculous. I don't see any point in doing it.
I've been very lucky up to a certain point, but everyone has their bad times. And I'm only just beginning. I mean, I'm only young, and I'll probably have a lot worse than I've been through now. I mean, you're a child, you always think how nice it would be to be grown up and independent and things. I mean, there are times when I wish I was sort of 3 again.
It just seems a miracle to me. When I last saw you at 21, you were nervous, you were chain-smoking, you were uptight, and now you seem happy. What's happened to you over these last 7 years?
I suppose Rupert. I'll give you some credit.
I'm now chain-smoking.
No, I didn't know where I was going at 21. I mean, I suppose I thought I was reasonably happy at 21, but I had no kind of direction, no. I obviously hadn't found what I wanted. I don't think most people have at 21. You're still very, very young.
As a teenager, Susie spent her school holidays on her father's estate in Scotland. What sort of things do you do?
Ride, swim, play tennis, ping pong. I might play croquet. Something like that.
What about the social life? What's that?
Garden pasture?
Yeah.
It's quite fun.
Well, I was any child going through their parents splitting up age 14 or at a very vulnerable age, and it does cut you up, but you get over it. It's not. I mean, there's no point in them staying together for me, because it was worse. I mean, the rise and it's worse. And if two people can't live together, there's no point in making yourself. My father died 3 years ago. It's very hard to describe to somebody how you just take the loss. It is terribly hard, and even now I still can't believe my father's not here. It's still sinking in, I think, even after 2.5 years. He was up in Scotland. It was in that very bad winter of '81, and we were literally snowed in, and I couldn't get out. And it was 3 weeks before Thomas was born, and I wasn't allowed to fly, no airline would take me, and the trains were blocked with the snow, and so I couldn't get there. And I still feel guilty that I didn't try and get myself out of here to go, but you know, when you're told you could endanger a baby's life, you have to rather sit still. The death of one of your close family is probably something you don't ever get over, and it's a different kind of problem than anything else. And it is hard to come to terms with. And it was really last year that it sunk in that he really wasn't around anymore.
What do you want most out of life?
To be happy and get on with life. I mean, I don't want to just sit back and let it always pass. I mean, you don't know how long you've got your life for. I mean, you know, you could be run over by a bus tomorrow, so you've got to make the most of it while you've got it.
Do you have any fears for the future, for yourself?
No, not so much for myself at all. I feel if I was going to have fallen by the wayside, I'd have done it by now. I think probably I'm too staid now to do that. But maybe I'm wrong.
When I grow up, I'd like to find out all about the moon and all that.
At 7, Nick, a farmer's son, was at a one-room village school in the Dales.
And I said I was interested in physics and chemistry. Well, I'm not going to do that here.
At 14, he was going to a Yorkshire boarding school, and at 21 was reading physics at Oxford.
We'll give it a whirl.
So what career are you going to pursue?
It depends whether I'll be good enough to do what I want to really do. I would like, if I can, to do research.
He is now in America, an assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin, earning $30,000 a year.
The gas in these experiments is at a temperature comparable with that of the sun, whereas in a power reactor it would be maybe 10 times the temperature of the sun. And we're trying to induce that gas to fuse. And the fusion reaction gives off energy and produces the power that would be turned into electrical energy and sent out to a consumer.
How hot is it in there?
In there it's at about 10 million degrees.
Nick is a nuclear physicist. He is using these high temperatures to fuse atoms, to try to produce energy which is free from radioactivity.
You have to be precisely coordinated with the plasma decay.
I finished my degree in physics and I went on to do a PhD. And having got the PhD, so it took 2.5 years to get that, which was relatively quick, I went to work at the United Kingdom Atomic Energy Authority's Culham laboratory, which is where they do fusion research. And that is what I've been aiming to do throughout my PhD. But I found when I got there that I got a big shock when I found that my standard of living went down when I started work. So when some people here offered me a job, I thought this might be a good opportunity to go somewhere else where the research environment was a bit more vigorous. So I came here in November of 1982 into a blizzard. The university is substantially different from an English university for several reasons. It's a much bigger university. Oxford had 10,000 people, this has 40,000 people. I guess the mixture of people who come here are different. A far bigger fraction of the population go to university here. Oxford is full of people who really are trying to prove something, I suppose, or be something. A lot of people with social or intellectual pretensions. You're less aware of that sort of thing here. On the other hand, the American system is much more like the comprehensive system in England would set out to try and be. It takes many more people and gets a huge section of the population to a level where they're really technically very competent and can go out and make Silicon Valley work.
Do you have a girlfriend?
I don't want to answer that. I don't answer those kind of questions.
I thought that one would come up because when I was doing the other one, somebody said, "What do you think about girls?" And I said, "I don't answer questions like that." Is that the reason you're asking it? Yeah, I thought so.
The best answer would be to say that I don't answer questions like that, but I mean, it was what I said when I was 7, and it's still the most sensible, but I mean, what about them?
Nick was only 17 when I first met him, and I knew he was a nice person. I find him very attractive, and he uses his intelligence in his relationship with me, which is very important. A lot of people can be very bright.
Nick and Jackie met when they were students at Oxford. Jackie is doing a postgraduate course in business studies.
And Nick does.
What about you, Nick? Why did you marry Jackie?
Because I find her attractive, she's bright and independent, and...
I mean, if you've been somebody who had fixed ideas of a woman's role in marriage that meant dinner on the table at 6 every evening...
didn't I tell you about that?
I think we would have had problems, or if one of us had not wanted children.
When I grow up, I'd like to find out all about the moon and all that.
Where did you get all this brain power?
All this brain power? I don't know. Did it just happen? All this brain power? That's a hard one to answer, because first I have to accept that I've got all this brain power. And that's not the sort of thing I tend to go around saying. But I've always been interested in, from a very early age, in technical or scientific things. When I was very young, I had a big picture book about the planets, and I thought this was wonderful. And I've just been interested in that sort of thing and reading technical or scientific material for a long, long time. I was the only child of my age in my village, but I managed to spend my time talking to adults who were around. If one is wandering down a country lane, there's an awful lot to look at in the world around you. I remember looking at various natural phenomena and being intrigued to try and understand what made them tick. One time I was particularly wrapped up in how a particular cloud, which was very unusual shape, and how did that work? And that was the sort of thing that made me want to go further into natural sciences. I think that if I'd been in a city, I probably would have had more interaction with people and might have developed more skills in dealing with other kids. Trying to become a reasonably well-adjusted person was, for me, a bit of a struggle for a while, and I was given a fantastic opportunity when I went to university, and that really saved my bacon.
They'd like to come out for a holiday in the country when I'd like to have a holiday in the town.
Oh, I've been to Leeds a couple of times, and I haven't been to Manchester. I went to London with the other when you did the first programme, but that's the only time I've been.
What attracts you about America?
It's an exciting place to be. There's a lot going on in terms of research and other things, but I really came here to do research. But there are more opportunities and just a general feeling of more going on than I had previously. The place is less hidebound, it's less bureaucratically tied down, so it's much easier to go out and get things done than in England.
Do you get lonely here?
You just tend to get stuck into your everyday routine and you don't think about it. But when you call home, then you realize how far away you are. And now it seems acute because both our families are getting older. Even if you think in terms of seeing them once every 2 years,
that's not so many
you're thinking
times,
only about 10 times. And that's awful. When you think in those terms, you realize you really are in exile.
Does this put a pressure on your relationship?
No, I think it binds us together because we just have one another over here.
In 21, some of the people were saying that they felt it was immoral to emigrate, immoral to leave. Do you have any feelings about that, since you're the one who's left?
In my position, I don't feel that I'm letting England down, because I don't think that England particularly wanted me there doing what I was doing. It had trained me marvellously. I'd gone through a wonderful educational system. Particularly Oxford was a fantastic experience socially, and it was a great place to try and develop emotionally. And the academic standards there are absolutely superb. Having trained in a very academic fashion there, and I then went out to try and do something with all that training and found that society just wasn't terribly interested in what I was trying to do. So how can I feel that I'm betraying a country when it doesn't want me to do what it's trained me to do?
The big issue for us at the moment is how we're going to manage to have kids and run two careers. We don't want to miss out on the chance of having a significant career, and we don't want to miss out on the chance to have kids and to be involved with them.
No, but in those early formative years, would you be happy for your children to be brought up by Jackie and Jackie not be able to give them the full attention?
Well, it's not. I mean, that's putting it in a rather strange way. Yes, I mean, I want.
Just me.
This is an area I pay lip service to, the idea of equal shares on this as well, and it remains to be seen whether I would actually live up to my intention.
Yeah, there are several things I think to be said here. That if we both work in academia, that will make life much easier, because as things are at the moment in the States, if you have a computer at home, you can come in to teach and to give office hours to your students, but you can work half of the day from home. But I don't want to be the person left behind while Nick flies in and shares an adult life with his children at college and working. I want to be there too.
Is she difficult?
At times, yes. Whenever we have an argument, she does have a tendency to explode, I suppose. To get really miserable about it and not.
We've only been married 4 years. Anything could happen. We could easily drift apart. There are so many pressures on people. You just have to work at it, and that's why it's important that you have the same ideas, that you want the same kind of life.
When we were in England, our big source of arguments was money. We were always squabbling about money, but that one, mercifully, seems to have gone away pretty well. We still disagree, but it isn't a major source of rows.
I mean, a person with £1 million is not going to be much. He's not going to be more unhappy than a person with £2 million.
I've never really been aiming for money, and that's, curiously enough, why it was such a surprise that it really surprised me when I found that my standard of living mattered to me when I finished university, and I found that I couldn't afford what I've been able to afford as a student. It suddenly caught up with me for the first time in my life that I really did care about how much money I was getting, and it had never occurred to me that I would.
If I could change the world, I'd change it into a diamond.
I'd like to think that, I'm hoping that I might do it at some stage, but I don't really think that I've done anything you can call a great success. I mean, it would seem really ridiculous to any of my friends who watch this if I said, Christ, aren't I a great success? Look at me.
When I first met you, I remember I thought this was very idealistic, but it was rather interesting. When I asked you why you're working on fusion, you said you wanted to save the world. I think that's a bit embarrassing now, but I don't think you'd feel the same way about something that you didn't feel mattered.
That's right, I picked it because I thought it really was something that could be useful to people. Hopefully, eventually. Yes, it would be a disappointment if I didn't achieve very much, but I'm not worrying about it very much. I've just got to go out and make it happen.
I don't think you want to go to university if you want to be an astronaut.
Well, changed my mind completely, of course. I think it was just the imagination that 7-year-old has.
I might be living in cloud cuckoo land, you know. Sort of, Mum and Dad might say, no, son, that's not life. You don't get a job you like. But, I'd like to think I could. Teachers are undervalued and underrated, and the system is beginning to crumble. You know, people outside of it don't realise that, but it is. And it's very disillusioning. You know, you don't feel you're getting anywhere. And, of course, the money as well, which, whatever the papers tell you, is abysmal.
Peter left his comprehensive school in Liverpool and at 21 was studying history at London University, living in student digs.
And the facts were that I'm not particularly an intelligent person, just reasonably, I suppose, but I'm not a genius, and I just went to college on 3 reasonable A-levels and just didn't do very much work for 3 years, just did the bare minimum. Turned up to lectures, wrote a few essays, and you get a degree for it, and it's a joke, really.
Once Carolyn Eppert said she loved me. And I'm going to marry her when I grow up.
Doesn't appeal to me at all at the moment. For me, what? I'm just gone 20. I haven't even been abroad yet in my life. So there's no way I'm going to get settled down.
What was it about Peter that you fell in love with?
Who said anything about love? I don't know. We have a very much the same attitude, much the same general attitude to life, even though we're very different in personality and in the things we like to do.
What is it about his personality that attracted you?
Well, nothing really. Not a great deal.
Peter and Rachel have been married 4 years and met at Teacher Training College. They have just bought their first home, a terraced house in the centre of Leicester. They both have careers. Peter teaches in a comprehensive school, Rachel in a college of further education.
There are 2 risks, either for one of us to follow the other around and therefore perhaps become frustrated and dissatisfied that you didn't initially follow your own line or your own individual wants. Or there's the risk that you take that you perhaps do have to part sometimes for jobs or whatever, or for what you particularly want to do. I think the latter risk is much more worth taking.
So you would be prepared to part?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is an element of compromise, otherwise why get married?
And do you have any plans for children?
Not at the moment, no. I haven't really thought about it seriously.
Why is that?
Well, I suppose because we both got, you know, other things we'd still prefer to be doing. You know, if you have children, you know, that immediately limits you. You don't want to be limited yet.
If you choose to have a family, then you also have a responsibility to children. So, you know, it's a very difficult decision. And although I think most liberated men would say that they too are involved in that decision, I think ultimately the responsibility still comes down on the woman's head.
Is Peter liberated?
Well, I think a lot of men such as Peter like to think they're liberated, and I'm not in any way saying that he's not, but I think when it comes to the crunch, you know, the absolute crunch, are you going to give up your job to look after these children? Then I think it more often than not, that decision is made by the woman rather than the man.
If you do have children, would you want them educated in the way that you've been educated?
I don't know if things have changed, but basically you've still got this emphasis on just getting through exams, you know, which isn't really education. Because most of the stuff you come out of school with is absolutely useless. You just don't need it.
So how would you bring them up, educate them?
Well, I don't know. I suppose the easy answer is teach them more relevant things, you know, get them to think for themselves a bit more, which schools don't do enough.
I mean, would you contemplate putting them into the private sector of education?
No, definitely not.
Why?
Well, it's just the principle, you know, that's all there is to it.
And what is the principle?
Well, the principle is that the private schools help to keep the old class system going. You know, they're part of it, they perpetuate it. So I'm certainly not going to be involved in that.
When I came through school at the end, perhaps of the, well, let's say that the ideals of the 60s were still there, even though it was the 70s, and that one was always led to believe that there were golden opportunities. But of course there aren't. And very much now, people of my generation are beginning to realise what perhaps 16-year-olds know now at 16. I am only just beginning to see that now at 27. that in fact, you know, there's no such thing as sort of mobility in any sense of the word. You know, it's very difficult to move up.
Do you think you've had as fair an opportunity as other people?
No. Of course not.
In what way?
Well, other people got it made for them still, haven't they? They got it all lined up.
How?
Well, like the public school lads. I don't want to slag off people who are in the programme with me. I'm not slagging them off personally. But I mean, they had it set up for them, didn't they?
It's a big problem. Quite a lot of discussion, I think. The workers do tend to take a few liberties as regards strikes.
I would like to think that democracy is here to stay. Perhaps we haven't got full democracy. In fact, we probably haven't. It's a pretty good system.
Are you surprised by the way England's being governed?
I'm not surprised with the people who govern it at the moment, no.
Why?
I've even stopped being amazed.
Why?
Why? Well, I don't get dragged into party politics, you know, but basically this is the most incompetent, uncaring bloody show we've ever had.
Well, if I can't be an astronaut, I'd like to be a bridewell sergeant in the police force, like my dad is.
Do you want to be rich?
I wouldn't mind, no.
I think once I can get myself going, I can work solid, yeah. But it's the motive, which is very hard to acquire.
Yeah. I'm dead lazy.
Well, what are you going to do about it?
Not much. I'm just hard to get, yeah, you know, I'm not the sort of person who can get charged up very quickly. I am really lazy, you know, if I've got things to do, I'd sooner make a cup of tea first and read the paper.
He always looks on the negative side of life before he looks on the positive, whereas perhaps I'm the opposite, and that, in a sense, is an area of conflict, yes. Yeah, a clash of personalities. Yeah.
And how do you deal with that?
Well, as you deal with all people like that, you just give them a good kick and say, you know, wake up to it, you know, that kind of thing.
And do you see any areas of conflict in the future for you, in personality?
No, I don't. Not really, because I think we both appreciate each other's personalities. In fact, it would be quite dull to be exactly the same. I mean, there is something quite exciting in being different, in that it isn't as predictable. You know, we're not along the same track all the time.
On the grass, we play international wrestling. Yeah, that's all. It's summertime though.
What have been for you the best times?
Tommy Smith scoring the second goal in Rome. Definitely. One of the old times.
Which game was that?
Which game was that? That was the European Cup final, 1977. No, it's hard, you know, after that it was all, nothing else compares with it really, so it's hard to think of anything else. I'll tell you what was another good moment. That was a group I played with, doing quite well on a few occasions. That was good.
Tell me about that.
That's just a local band. I was until fairly recently. You know, I just played pubs and that, but it was very enjoyable. You know, when you get a good reaction from people, it's just one of the best things you can have, really.
Do you ever get that in your work?
No, God, no.
Why?
Well, what are you asking? You know, they like applaud at the end of each lesson or something.
No, just that excitement, that communication.
No, I don't.
Do you think people change much, or do you think we saw you, the man, the 7-year-old boy?
I thought for a while that was a bit too simple, but I think it's true, because after that, you know, your barriers begin to go up and you learn how to fend off things, like I was just saying. And obviously when you're 7, you don't think about it, you just come out with it. So, yeah, to a point you reflect that, yeah.
So the boy at 7 is in a sense the real you?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, the sort of, the essential Peter Davis.
There were 9 other children filmed in 1963. What of them?
If we did all love Jeffrey and we all want to marry him, I think I know the one that he likes best, and that's her. No, I wasn't talking today, and Brown sent me out for nothing. I feel like bundling when there's already a fight. If I can't be an astronaut, I think I'll be a coach driver. I read the Financial Times.
What's happened to these children? Where are they and what are they doing? We'll see tomorrow night.